Lesson 13. Discourse on the Wonderful and Marvelous Qualities. Akari Yabuta Dhamma Sutta. Paragraph 1. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta Grove. Then the conversation arose the monks in the assembly hall. Upatana Sala. How wonderful, your reverence, how marvelous are the great psychic power and the great majesty of the Tathagata, that he should know of former awakened ones who have attained Nibbana, who have cut off obstacles, who have ended the cycle, who have escaped from all sorrow. Paragraph 2. Then the Lord, emerging from meditation toward the evening, approached the hall and addressed the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, deliver at great length the Tathagata's wonderful and marvelous qualities. Face to face with the Lord, I have learned this. The Bodhisattva arose in the Tusita group, mindful and clearly conscious. I regard this as a wonder, a marvelous quality of the Lord's. The Bodhisattva remained in the Tusita group, mindful and clearly conscious, as long as his lifespan lasted. The Bodhisattva, passing away from the Tusita group, mindful and clearly conscious, entered his mother's womb. When the Bodhisattva, having passed away from the Tusita, entered his mother's womb, an illimitable, glorious radiance, surpassing the glory of gods, appeared in the worlds with the gods, the Maras, and the Brahmas, and men. Even in those spaces between the worlds, baseless and dark, where even the moon and the sun, so powerful and majestic, cannot make their light prevail, even there appeared the illimitable radiance, and the beings who happened to be there, perceiving each other, thought, indeed, there are other beings living here. And the 10,000 worlds of the universe quaked and shook as there appeared the radiance. Paragraph 3. It is the rule that, when the Bodhisattva is entering his mother's womb, 4 sons of the gods, devas, approach so as to guard the 4 quarters, saying, do not let a human being or a non-human being annoy the Bodhisattva and his mother. When he is entering his mother's womb, his mother is virtuous through her own nature, restrained from taking life, killing, from taking what is not given, from wrong conduct, from lying speech, and from indulgence in strong drinks. No desire arises in his mother toward men, and she is enjoying the 5 sense pleasures, endowed with the 5 sense pleasures. No ailment arises in his mother. She is at ease. Her body is not tired, and within her womb she sees the Bodhisattva, complete in all his limbs, his sense organs perfect, just as a gem of purest water, well cut into 8 facets, flawless, excellent in every way, might be strung on a thread, blue or yellow or red or white or orange, and a man with vision, having taken it in his hand, might reflect, this is a gem of purest water. The Bodhisattva's mother dies 7 days after the Bodhisattva is born, and she arises in the Tusita group. Paragraph 4. The Bodhisattva's mother carries him for exactly 10 months before the child's birth. She gives birth to the Bodhisattva while standing. When he is issuing from her womb, gods receive him first, men afterwards. When he is issuing, he does not touch the earth. The 4 sons of gods, having received him, present him to his mother, saying, Rejoice, lady, mighty is the son that is born to you. When he is issuing, he is quite stainless, undefiled by watery matter, by blood, by any impurity. It is as when a jewel is laid on a Benares muslin. The jewel is not stained by the muslin, nor is the muslin stained by it. When he is issuing, 2 streams of water appear from the sky, the one cool, the other warm, with which they do the bathing for him and his mother. Paragraph 5. When he has come to birth, standing firm on both feet, facing north, he takes 7 strides, and while a white sunshade is held over him, looking around on every side, he utters, as with the voice of a bull, I am chief in the world. I am best in the world. I am eldest in the world. This is the last birth. There is no more again becoming. When he is issuing, an illimitable, glorious radiance appears in the world as above. Paragraph 6. Therefore, Ananda, regard this too as a wonder. The feelings that arise in the Tathagata are known. They persist and they go to destruction. The perceptions, the thoughts that arise are known. They persist and then they go to destruction. Paragraph 7. Thus spoke the Venerable Ananda. The teacher approved. Delighted, the bhikkhus rejoiced at what the Venerable Ananda had said. Dhammapada verses. Verse 368. A bhikkhu who dwells in love, metta, and faith in the Buddha's teaching will attain that state of peace and bliss, the calming of all conditioned things. Verse 369. Empty out this boat, the body, O bhikkhu. When it is emptied, it will move swiftly. Cut off lust and ill will, and then you will reach Nibbana. Verse 370. Let the bhikkhu cut off the 5 bonds, renounce the other 5, and develop 5 more. He who has gone beyond the 5 fetters is called the one who has crossed the flood. Verse 372. There is no concentration for one who lacks wisdom, nor is there wisdom for him who lacks concentration. He in whom there are both concentration and wisdom is indeed in the presence of Nibbana. Verse 374. When he continually reflects on the rise and fall of the 5 groups, he experiences joy and happiness as he realizes the deathless Amata. Lesson 14. Part 1. The Buddha in the World. On one occasion, the Exalted One was journeying along the high road in Kosala. Now the Brahmin Dona was also traveling along the road. Then the Brahmin beheld on the footprints of the Exalted One the wheel marks with their 1,000 spokes, with their rims and hubs, and all their attributes complete. On seeing these, he thought thus, It is wonderful indeed. It is marvelous indeed. These will not be the footprints of a human being. Paragraph 2. Just then, the Exalted One stepped aside from the high road and sat down at a root of a tree, sitting cross-legged, holding his body upright and setting mindfulness in front of him. Then the Brahman Dona, following up the Exalted One's footprints, beheld him seated there, comely, faith-inspiring, and with calm senses, tranquil mind in the attainment of composure by masterly control, like a tamed, alert, perfectly trained elephant. He approached the Exalted One and said this: "Your reverence will be a diva?" "No, indeed, Brahman, I will not be a diva." "Then your reverence will be a Gandhava." "No, indeed, Brahman, I will not be a Gandhava." "A Yaka, then?" "No, indeed, not a Yaka." "Then your reverence will be a human being?" "No, indeed, I'll not be a human being." When questioned thus, "Your reverence will be a Deva, a Gandhava, a Yaka, a human being," you reply, "Not so. I'll not be a Deva, a Gandhava, a Yaka, a human being." "Who then will your reverence be?" Paragraph 3. Brahman, if those defilements, asavas, were not destroyed, I should become a diva. Those defilements in me are destroyed, cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, so that they cannot arise again in the future. If those asavas were not destroyed, I should become a Gandhava, a Yaka, a human being. Those asavas in me are destroyed, as a palm tree whose crown has been cut off cannot put forth growth again. Just as, Brahman, a lotus, blue, red, or white, though born in the water, grown up in the water, when it reaches the surface, stands rising out of the water, unsoiled by the water. Even so, Brahman, though born in the world, grown up in the world, having overcome the world, I abide unsoiled by the world. Take it that I am a Buddha, Brahman. As a lotus, fair and lovely, by the water is not soiled. By the world I am not soiled. Therefore, Brahman, am I a Buddha. Part 2. The Wonderful Marvels of the Dhamma Vinaya. Monks, in this Dhamma discipline, there are many wonderful things which the monks delight to see and see. What are they? 1. Just as monks, the mighty ocean slopes down, slides and tends downward gradually, and there is no abrupt precipice. Even so, in this Dhamma discipline, the training is gradual. The progress is gradual. There is no abrupt penetration of knowledge. This is the first wonderful thing in this Dhamma discipline, which the monks delight to see and see. 2. Just as monks, the mighty ocean is fixed and does not overpass its bounds. Even so, when the code of training is made known by me to my disciples, they will not transgress it, even for life's sake. This is the second marvel. 3. Just as, monks, the great rivers entering the mighty ocean lose their former names and are termed simply ocean, even so the four castes, the Khatyas, nobles, the Brahmins, the Vesas, merchants, and the Sudras, servants, going forth from home to the homeless life in the Dhamma discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata, lose their former names and lineages and are regarded simply as recluses, sons of Sakyas. This is the third marvel. 4. Just as all the streams that flow into the ocean all that rains, that falls from the sky, affect neither the emptiness nor the fullness of the ocean. Even so, though many monks pass finally away in that condition of Nibbana, which has no remainder, yet neither the emptiness nor fullness in that condition of Nibbana is seen. This is the fourth marvel. 5. Just as, monks, the mighty ocean has but one taste, the taste of salt, even so, this Dhamma discipline has but one flavor, the flavor of liberation. This is the fifth marvel. 6. Just as, monks, the ocean has many and diverse gems, the pearl, the crystal, and so forth. Even so, this Dhamma discipline has many and diverse gems. That is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 right efforts, the 4 ways to psychic power, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 limbs of awakening, the Aryan Eightfold Path. This is the 6th marvel. 7. Just as, monks, the ocean is the abode of great creatures, the Asuras, the Nagas, the Gandhabas, even so, this Dhamma discipline is the abode of great beings, that is to say, the stream winner and the one who has attained the fruit of stream winning, the once returner and the one who has attained the fruit of once returning, the non-returner and the one who has attained the fruit of non-returning, the Arahant and the one who has attained the fruit of Arahantship. This is the 7th marvel. These, monks, really are the wonderful marvels in this Dhamma discipline, seeing which again and again the monks take delight in this Dhamma discipline. Dhammapada verses. Verse 195. The one who pays reverence to those worthy of reverence, whether the Buddhas or their disciples, those that have overcome the hindrances, those that have crossed the sea of sorrow. Verse 196. He who pays homage to such peaceful and fearless ones who have attained Nibbana, his merit cannot be measured by anyone. Verse 418. He who has given up both likes and dislikes, who is cool and free from attachment, who has conquered all the worlds, him I call a Brahman. Verse 420. He whose future state is not known to gods or Gandhabas or men, who has destroyed all defilements, him I call a Brahman. Verse 423. The sage who knows his former abodes, who sees heaven and hell, who has reached the end of rebirth, who has attained super-knowledge, in him in whom all perfections have been perfected, him I call a Brahman. Lesson 15, Part 1. The Kovilara Parichataka Tree, the Heavenly Coral Tree. Paragraph 1. Monks, when the Kovilara Parichataka, the Heavenly Coral Tree of the BUDDHISM Devas, the 33 gods, is dry in leaf, those devas greatly rejoice. The Heavenly Coral Tree is dry in leaf. Before long there will be leaf fall. Paragraph 2. When the leaves are falling, they greatly rejoice. Falling are now the leaves. Shortly now will appear every bud. Paragraph 3. When the buds appear, they greatly rejoice. Now the buds appear. Soon the shoots will come out. Paragraph 4. When the shoots come out, they greatly rejoice. Now the shoots come out. Soon will the blossoms form. Paragraph 5. When the blossoms form, they greatly rejoice. Now the blossoms form. Soon, like the red lotus, will the flowers be shaped. Paragraph 6. When the flowers are shaped like the red lotus, they greatly rejoice. Shaped like the red lotus are the flowers. Soon the flowers will be in full bloom. Paragraph 7. When the Kovilara Parichataka tree of the Tabatisma Devas is in full bloom, those devas sport for 4 divine months at the foot of the tree, indulging in the 5 sense pleasures. Paragraph 8. When the divine tree is in full bloom, its radiance pervades 50 yojanas. The perfume is wafted along by the wind 100 yojanas. This is the divine power of the Kovilara Parichataka tree. Paragraph 9. In just the same way, monks, when the Aryan disciple is inclined to go forth from home into the homeless life, the Aryan disciple is dry in leaf, like the heavenly coral tree of the Tabatisma Devas. Paragraph 10. When the Aryan disciple has his hair and beard shaved off, and donned the saffron robe and gone forth, it is his fall of leaf like the heavenly coral tree. Paragraph 11. Then, aloof from sense pleasures, from evil, unskilled states of mind, he enters on and abides in the first jhana, a state of joy and ease born of detachment, accompanied by applied thought and sustained thought. This is the time when his buds appear, like the heavenly coral tree. Paragraph 12. Then, by calming down applied thought and sustained thought, he enters on and abides in the second jhana, a state of joy and ease, born of concentration, which is void of applied and sustained thought, a state of inward calm and one-pointedness of mind. This is the time when his shoots come out, like the heavenly coral tree. Paragraph 13. Then, aloof from joy, dwelling detached, mindful and composed, he experiences in his body that ease of which the Arahants say, "The one who has equanimity and is mindful dwells at ease," and entering on the third jhana, he abides in it. This is the time when his blossoms form, like the heavenly coral tree. Paragraph 14. Then, by getting rid of ease and pain, by the ending of his former pleasures and sorrows, he enters on and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor ease, a state of pure equanimity and mindfulness. This is the time when his flowers are of the red lotus shape, like the heavenly coral tree. Paragraph 15. When the Aryan disciple, by destroying the cankers, enters on and abides in full realization, his flowers are in full bloom, like the heavenly coral tree. Then the earth devas utter a shout. This revered sir, living a life of faith, has destroyed the cankers and dwells in full realization. Hearing the shout, the 4 great kings devas, the Tabatimsa devas, the Yama devas, the Tusita devas, the devas who delight in creation, the devas who delight in others' creations, and the devas of the Brahma's attendants roll back the cry, "This revered sir, living the life of faith, by the destruction of the cankers, having realized by his super knowledge here and now the emancipation of mind and emancipation of wisdom, which is cankerless, enters on and abides in it. Thus, in an instant, thus in a moment, the sound soars up to the Brahma heaven. This is the progressive power of a monk who has destroyed the cankers. Part 2. The One Person. Paragraph 1. Monks. There is one person whose birth into the world is for the welfare of many folk, for the happiness of many folk, who is born out of compassion for the world, for the profit, welfare and happiness of devas and mankind. Who is that person? It is Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 2. Monks. The appearance of one person is hard to be found in the world. Of what person? Of a Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 3. Monks. One person born into the world is a wonderful one. What person? It is a Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 4. Monks. The passing away of one person is to be regretted by many folk. Of what person? Of a Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 5. Monks. There is one person born in the world who is unique, without a peer, without a counterpart, incomparable, unequaled, matchless, unrivaled, best of bipeds. Who is that one person? It is a Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 6. Monks. The appearance of one person is the appearance of a mighty eye, a mighty light, a mighty radiance, of 6 things unsurpassed. It is the realization of the 4 branches of logical analysis, the penetration of the various elements, of the diversity of elements. It is the realization of the fruits of knowledge and emancipation, the realization of the fruits of stream winning, of once returning, of non-returning, of arahantship. Of what person? Of a Tathagata, an arahant, a fully self-awakened one. Paragraph 7. Monks. I know not of any other single person who so perfectly keeps rolling the supreme Dhamma wheel, set rolling by the Tathagata, as does Sariputta. Sariputta, monks, is the one who perfectly keeps rolling the supreme Dhamma wheel, set rolling by the Tathagata. Dhammapada verses. Verse 181. The wise ones who are devoted to meditation, those who delight in the tranquility of renunciation, who are enlightened and mindful, are beloved even by the gods. Verse 187. The wise man finds no delight, even in heavenly pleasures. The disciple of the fully enlightened one delights only in the destruction of craving. Verse 206. It is a good thing to see the noble ones. To live with them is ever happy. By not seeing fools, one may ever be happy. Verse 208. Therefore, one should associate with the intelligent, the wise, the learned, the patient, the dutiful, the noble, as the moon follows its course among the stars. Verse 381. The bhikkhu, full of joy, full of confidence in the Buddha's teaching, will attain the peaceful state, the calming of conditioned things, the bliss. Lesson 16. The first discourse of the Buddha. Setting in motion the wheel of truth. Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta. Part 1. Paragraph 1. Thus have I heard. The Blessed One was once dwelling in the deer park at Isipatana, the resort of seers, near Varanasi. There he addressed the company of 5 bhikkhus. O bhikkhus, these 2 extremes should not be practiced by one who has gone forth from the household life. What are the 2? devotion to the indulgence of sense pleasures, which is low, base, unworthy, and unprofitable, and devotion to self-mortification, which is painful, unworthy, and unprofitable. Paragraph 2. By avoiding these extremes, the Tathagata has comprehended the middle path, which gives vision, which gives knowledge, and which leads to calm, insight, enlightenment, nibbana. And what, O bhikkhus, is the middle path? It is verily the noble eightfold path, namely, right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. This, O bhikkhus, is the middle path, comprehended by the Tathagata, which gives vision, which gives knowledge, and which leads to calm, insight, enlightenment, nibbana. Paragraph 3. Now this, O bhikkhus, is the noble truth of suffering, dukkha. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Death is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. Association with the unpleasant is suffering. Dissociation from the pleasant is suffering. Not to get what one desires is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. Paragraph 4. Now this, O bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya. It is this thirst which leads to rebirth, accompanied by passionate greed. It finds delight now here and now there, namely, the thirst for sense pleasures, the thirst for existence, and the thirst for non-existence. Paragraph 5. Now this, O bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha. It is the complete cessation of that very thirst, giving it up, renouncing it, liberating oneself from it, detaching oneself from it. Paragraph 6. Now this, O bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, magga. It is verily the noble eightfold path, namely right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Part 2. Paragraph 1. A. This is the noble truth of suffering. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye vision, the knowledge, the wisdom, the insight, the light. B. This noble truth of suffering should be fully understood. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. C. This noble truth of suffering has been fully understood. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. Paragraph 2. A. This is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. B. This origin of suffering as a noble truth should be abandoned. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the light. C. This origin of suffering as a noble truth has been abandoned. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. Paragraph 3. A. This is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. B. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering should be realized. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. C. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering has been realized. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. Paragraph 4. A. This is the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the light. B. This noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering should be cultivated. Concerning things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. C. This noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering has been cultivated. Things unheard before, there arose in me the eye, the light. Paragraph 5. O bhikkhus, as long as my knowledge and vision was not quite purified in these 3 aspects and these 12 ways regarding the 4 noble truths, I did not claim to have realized the incomparable supreme enlightenment in the world with its devas, maras, brahmas, among the host of recluses, brahmanas, gods, and men. Paragraph 6. But, O bhikkhus, when my knowledge and vision was quite purified in these 3 aspects and these 12 ways regarding the 4 noble truths, then I claim to have realized the incomparable supreme enlightenment in the world, with its devas, maras, brahmas, among the hosts of recluses, brahmanas, gods, and men. Now knowledge and vision arose in me thus. Unshakable is my heart's deliverance. This is the last birth. There is no more becoming. Paragraph 7. Thus spoke the Blessed One. The company of 5 monks were glad and rejoiced at the words of the Blessed One. Paragraph 8. When the discourse was expounded, there arose in the Venerable Kondana the dustless, stainless Dhamma vision to see thus. Whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. Paragraph 9. Moreover, when the founding of wisdom was thus expounded by the Blessed One, the earth devas raised the cry. This unsurpassed Dhammacakka, which could not be expounded by any recluse or brahmana, any deva or mara, or brahma, or by anyone in the world, has been expounded by the Blessed One in the deer park at Isipatana near Benares. Paragraph 10. Hearing the cry, the 4 great kings' devas, the 33 devas, the Yama devas, the devas of delight, the created devas, the devas who rejoice in others' creations, also raised the cry. This unsurpassed Dhammacakka has been expounded by the Blessed One in the deer park at Isipatana near Benares. Paragraph 11. Thus, at that very moment, at that very instant, that cry reached even to the Brahma world, and this 10,000 world system quaked and shook again, and vibrated violently. An immeasurable, mighty radiance, surpassing the glory of gods, appeared in the world. Paragraph 12. Thereupon the Blessed One uttered this solemn saying, Kodana has indeed understood. Kodana has indeed understood. Thus, the Venerable Kodana won his name of Kodana the Knower, Anatta Kodana. Dhammapada verses. Verse 274. This is the only path. There is none other that leads to purity of vision. Do you follow this path? So you will bewilder Mara. Verse 275. If you enter on this path, you will make an end of suffering. This path which I have preached, so soon as I learned to remove the thorns. Paragraph 281. One should be guarded in word and restrained in mind. Do no wrong with the body. Purify these 3 ways of actions, and then one will gain the path taught by the sages. Verse 282. From meditation arises wisdom. Without meditation, wisdom decays. Knowing this twofold path of gain and loss, let him settle himself, so that wisdom may increase. Verse 283. Cut down the forest of lust, not alone a single tree. From the forest of lust springs fear. Cut down the forest of lust, and you will be free from lust. Attain Nibbana. Lesson 17. Discourse on the No-Self characteristic. Anattalakkhana Sutta. Paragraph 1. Thus have I heard. At one time the Exalted One was dwelling in the deer park at Isipatana near Benares. Then the Exalted One addressed the group of 5 bhikkhus. O bhikkhus, O Lord. Thereupon the Exalted One spoke as follows. Paragraph 2. Form, O bhikkhus, is not self. If form, O bhikkhus, were self, then form would not lead to sickness, and one could say of form, may my form be thus, may my form not be thus. But indeed, O bhikkhus, since form is not self, therefore form leads to sickness, and one cannot say of form, may my form be thus, may my form not be thus. Paragraph 3. Feeling is not self. In like manner, perception, mental activities, and consciousness are not self. Paragraph 4. Now what think ye, O bhikkhus, is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, O Lord. What is impermanent? Is it happy or painful? Painful, O Lord. Then what is impermanent, painful, unstable? Is it proper to regard it as, this is mine, this am I, this is myself? Indeed, not that, O Lord. Paragraph 5. Similarly, O bhikkhus, feelings, perception, mental activities, and consciousness are impermanent and painful. Is it proper to regard those which are impermanent, painful, unstable as, this is mine, this am I, this is myself? Indeed, not that, O Lord. Paragraph 6. Then, O bhikkhus, all form, whether past, present, or future, internal or external, coarse or subtle, low or high, far or near, should be regarded with proper wisdom as it really is. This is not mine, this am I not, this is not myself. Paragraph 7. All feelings, perception, mental activities, and consciousness should be so regarded. Paragraph 8. Seeing thus, O bhikkhus, the well-taught Aryan disciple feels disgust for form, for feelings, for perception, for mental activities, for consciousness. So feeling disgust, he becomes passion-free. In his freedom from passion, he is emancipated. Being emancipated, then arises the knowledge. Emancipated am I, and he knows, destroyed is birth, lived is the holy life. What should be done is done. There is no more of this becoming again. Paragraph 9. Thus spoke the Exalted One. The group of 5 bhikkhus were delighted and welcomed what the Exalted One had said. Moreover, as the discourse was being expounded, the minds of the 5 bhikkhus were freed from defilements without grasping. Dhammapada verses. Verse 277. Impermanent are all component things. He who perceives this with insight gets disgusted with ill. This is the path to purity. Verse 278. Sorrowful are all component things. He who perceives this with insight gets disgusted with ill. This is the path to purity. Verse 279. Void of self are all component things. all component things are without self. He who perceives this with insight gets disgusted with ill. This is the path to purity. Verse 351. He who has reached the goal, who is fearless, who is free from craving, who is passionless, who has cut out the arrows of existence, such a one wears this body for the last time. Verse 367. He who has no attachment whatever for name, mind, and form, who grieves not for what does not exist, such a man is truly called a bhikkhu. Lesson 18. A Tathagata in the world. Paragraph 1. Monks, the world is fully comprehended by a Tathagata. From the world a Tathagata is released. Monks, the arising of the world is fully comprehended by a Tathagata. The arising of the world is abandoned by a Tathagata. The ending of the world is fully comprehended by a Tathagata. The ending of the world is realized by a Tathagata. Monks, the path leading to the ending of the world is fully comprehended by a Tathagata. The path leading to the ending of the world is cultivated by a Tathagata. Paragraph 2. Monks, whatever in the whole world, with the world of Maras, Brahmas, together with the host of recluses and Brahmanas, of Devas and mankind, is seen, heard, sensed, perceived, attained, searched into, pondered over by the mind, all that is fully comprehended by a Tathagata. Therefore, he is called a Tathagata. Moreover, whatever a Tathagata utters, speaks, and proclaims, between the night of his enlightenment and the night on which he passes utterly away, all that is just so and not otherwise. Therefore, he is called Tathagata. Paragraph 3. Monks, as a Tathagata speaks, so he does. As he does, so he speaks. That is why he is called a Tathagata. Paragraph 4. Monks, in the whole world, with the world of Devas, Maras, Brahmas, together with the host of recluses and Brahmanas, of Devas and mankind, a Tathagata is conqueror, unconquered, all-knowing, omnipotent. Therefore, he is called Tathagata. A hymn to Tathagata. Paragraph 5. By comprehending all the world, in all the world as it is, from all the world is he released. In all the world he clings to naught. Paragraph 6. He is the all-victorious sage. 'Tis he who loosens every bond. By him is reached the perfect peace, Nibbana, which is void of fear. Paragraph 7. The enlightened one, the passion-free, sinless, who has cut off all doubts, has reached the end of every deed, freed by removal of the base. Paragraph 8. Exalted one, enlightened he is, the lion he is without compare. For the Deva world and world of men, he caused the Brahma wheel to roll. Paragraph 9. Therefore, the Devas and mankind, who went for refuge to the seer, meeting shall pay him due homage. The mighty one of ripe wisdom. Paragraph 10. Tamed, of the tamed he is the chief. Calmed, of the calmed he is the sage. Freed, of the freed topmost is he. Crossed over, of them that cross the best. Paragraph 11. So saying shall they honor him, the mighty one, of ripe wisdom. In the world of Devas and mankind, none is there who can equal thee. Dhammapada verses. Verse 179. The one whose victory cannot be turned to defeat, whose victory no one in the world can equal, the trackless Buddha of infinite range. By what way will you lead him? Verse 180. The one in whom there is no craving, with its snares and poison, to lead him anywhere. The trackless Buddha of infinite range. By what way will you lead him? Verse 254. There is no path through the air. Outside there is no saint. Mankind delights in obstacles. The Tathagatas are free from obstacles. Verse 255. There is no path through the air. Outside there is no saint. There is no component thing that is eternal. There is no instability in the Buddhas. Verse 353. I have overcome all. I am the knower of all. From all am I detached. All I have renounced. By the destruction of craving am I emancipated. Having realized by myself supreme knowledge, whom can I call my teacher? Book 2. Supplementary Lessons. Lesson number 1. Yuvanjana Jataka, number 460. A. Introduction. I greet the Lord, etc. This story the Master told while dwelling in Jetavana about the great renunciation. One day, the brethren had assembled in the Hall of Truth. Brother, one would say to his fellow, the Dasabala might have dwelt in a house. He might have been a universal monarch in the center of the great world, possessed of the 7 precious things, glorious with the 4 supernatural faculties, surrounded with sons more than 1,000. Yet all this magnificence he renounced when he perceived the bane that lies in desire. At midnight, with Channa in his company, he mounted his horse Kantaka and departed. On the banks of Anoma, the river glorious, he renounced the world, and for 6 years he tormented himself with austerities, and then attained to perfect wisdom. Thus talked they of the Buddha's virtues. The Master entering asked, What are you speaking of now, brethren, as ye sit here? They told him. Said the Master, This is not the first time, brethren, that the Tathagata has made the great renunciation. In days of yore, he retired and gave up the kingdom of Benares city, which has 12 leagues in extent. So saying, he told the story of the past. Main divisions. Part 1. Once upon a time, a king named Sabhadatta reigned in the city of Rama. The place which we now call Benares is named Surandana city in the Udaya birth, and Sudasana in the Kula Sutasoma birth, and Brahmavadana in the Sonanda birth, and Papavati in the Kandahala birth. But in this Yuvanjana birth it is named Rama city. In this manner its name changes on each several occasion. At that time the king Sabhadatta had 1,000 sons, and to his eldest son Yuvanjana he gave the viceroyalty. One day, early in the morning, he mounted his splendid chariot, and in great pomp went to disport himself in the park. On the treetops, on the grass tips, at the end of the branches, on all the spiders' webs and threads, on the points of the rushes, he saw the dewdrops hanging like so many strings of pearls. Friend charioteer, quoth he, what is this? This, my lord, he replied, is what falls in the cold weather, and they call it dew. The prince took his pleasure in the park for a portion of the day. In the evening, as he was returning home, he could see none of it. Friend charioteer, said he, where are the dewdrops? I do not see them now. My lord, said the other,
As the sun rises higher, they all melt and sink into the ground. On hearing this, the prince was distressed and said, "The life of us living beings is fashioned like dewdrops on the grass. I must be rid of the oppression of disease, old age, and death. I must take leave of my parents and renounce the world." So because of the dewdrops, he perceived the three modes of existence as it were in a blazing fire. When he came home, he went into the presence of his father in the magnificent hall of judgment, and greeting his father, he stood on one side and repeated the first stanza, asking his leave to renounce the world. 1. I greet the Lord of charioteers, with friends and courtiers by. The world, O king, I would renounce, let not my lord deny. Then the king repeated the second stanza, dissuading him. 2. If aught thou crave, Vanjana, I will fulfill it quite. If any hurt thee, I protect. Be thou no eremite. Hearing this, the prince recited the third stanza. 3. No man there is that does me harm, my wishes nothing lack, but I would seek a refuge where old age makes no attack. Part 2. By way of explaining this matter, the master uttered a half stanza. 4. The son speaks to his father thus, the father to his son. The remaining half stanza was uttered by the king. Leave not the world, O prince, so cry townsfolk every one. The prince again repeated this stanza. 5. O do not from the unworldly life, great monarch, make me stay, lest I, intoxicated with lust, to age become a prey. This said, the king hesitated. Then the mother was told, Your son, my lady, is asking his father's leave to renounce the world. What do you say? She asked. It took her breath away. Seated in her litter of gold, she went swiftly to the hall of judgment, and repeating the sixth stanza asked, 6. I beg thee, it is I, my dear, and I would make thee stay. Long wish I thee, my son, to see. O do not go away. On hearing which, the prince repeated the seventh stanza. 7. Like as the dew upon the grass, when the sun rises hot, so is the life of mortal men. O mother, stay me not. When he said this, she begged him again and again, to the same effect. Then the great being addressed his father in the eighth stanza. 8. Let those that bear this litter lift, let not my mother stay. Me, mighty king, from entering upon my holy way. When the king heard his son's words, he said, Go, lady, in your litter, back to our palace of perennial delight. At his words, her feet failed her, and surrounded with her company of women, she departed, and entered the palace, and stood looking towards the hall of judgment, and wondering what news of her son. After his mother's departure, the Bodhisattva again asked leave of his father. The king could not refuse him, and said, Have thy will, then, dear son, and renounce the world. When this consent was gained, the Bodhisattva's youngest brother, Prince Uditila, greeted his father, and likewise asked to leave to follow the religious life, and the king consented. Both brothers bade their farewell, and having now renounced worldly lust, departed from the hall of judgment, amidst a great company of people. The queen, looking upon the great being, cried weeping, My son has renounced the world, and the city of Rama will be empty. Then she repeated a couple of stanzas. 9. Make haste and bless thee, Empty now is Ramaka, I trow. King Sabadtata has allowed Yuvanjana to go. 10. The eldest of 1,000, he like gold to look upon. This mighty prince has left the world, the yellow robe to don. The Bodhisattva did not at once embrace the religious life. No, he first bade farewell to his parents, then taking with him his youngest brother, Prince Uditila, he left the city, and sending back the great multitude which followed them, they both made their way to Himalaya. There, in a delightsome spot, they built a hermitage, and embraced the life of a holy sage. And cultivating the transcendent rapture of meditation, they lived all their lives long upon the fruits and roots of the forest, and became destined for the world of Brahma. C. Conclusion. This matter is explained in the stanza of perfect wisdom, which comes last. 11. Yuvanjana, Uditila, in holy life remain. Their father and their mother left. They break into death's chain. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, This is not the first time, brethren, that the Tathagata renounced a kingdom to follow the religious life, but it was the same before. Then he identified the birth. At that time, members of the present king's family were the father and mother. Ananda was Uditila, and I was Yuvanjana myself. Lesson number 2. Kanda Kinara Jataka, number 485. A. Introduction. 'Tis passing away, etc. This is a story which the master told while dwelling in the Banyan Grove, hard by Kapilapura, about Rahula's mother when he came back to Kapilavatu to see King Sudahama, his father. The master, seated in his father's house during the meal, recounted the Mahadamapala birth, and after the meal was done he said, I will praise the noble qualities of Rahula's mother in her own house by telling the Kanda Kinara birth. Then handing his bowl to the king, with the 2 chief disciples, he passed over to the house of Rahula's mother. At that time there were some 2,000 dancing girls who lived in her presence, and many of them were maidens of the warrior caste. When the lady heard of Tathagata's coming, she bade all these put on yellow robes, and they did so. The master came and took his seat in a place which was assigned him. Then all the women cried out with one voice, and there was a great sound of lamentation. Rahula's mother, having wept and so put away her grief, welcomed the master, and sat down with the deep reverence due to a king. Then the king began the tale of her goodness. Listen to me, sir. She heard that you wore yellow robes, and so she robed in yellow, that garlands and such things are to be given up, and lo, she has given up garlands, and sits upon the ground. When you entered upon the religious life, she became a widow, and refused the gifts that other kings sent her. So faithful is her heart to you. Thus he told of her goodness in many different ways. The master said, It is no marvel, great king, that now in my last existence the lady should love me, and should be of faithful heart, and led by me alone. So also, even when born as a non-human, she was faithful to me alone. Then, at the king's request, he told a story of the past. V. Main Divisions, Part 1. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the great being was born in the region of the Himalaya as a fairy. His wife was named Kanda. These two dwelt together on a silver mountain named Kanda Pabada, or the Mountain of the Moon. At that time, the king of Benares had committed his government to his ministers, and all alone, dressed in 2 yellow robes, and armed with the 5 weapons, he proceeded to the Himalayas. Whilst eating his venison, he remembered where was a little stream, and began to climb the hill. Now the fairies that live on the Mountain of the Moon in the rainy season remain on the mountain, and come down only in the hot weather. At that time, this fairy Kanda, with his mate, came down and wandered about, anointing himself with perfumes, eating the pollen of flowers, clothing himself in flower gauze for inner and outer garments, swinging in the creepers to amuse himself, singing songs in a honey voice. He too came to this stream, and at once halting pace, he went down into it with his wife, scattering flowers about and playing in the water. Then they put on again their garments of flowers, and on a sandy spot, white as a silver plate, they spread a couch of flowers and lay there. Picking up a piece of bamboo, the male fairy began to play upon it, and sang with a honey voice, while his mate, waving her soft hands, danced hard by and sang withal. The king caught the sound, and treading softly so that his footsteps might not be heard, he approached, and stood watching the fairies in a secret place. He immediately fell in love with the female fairy. "I will shoot the husband," thought he, "and kill him, and I will live here with the wife." Then he shot the fairy Kanda, who, lamenting in his pain, uttered 4 stanzas. 1. 'Tis passing away, methinks, and my blood is flowing, flowing. I am losing my hold on life. O Kanda, my breath is going. 2. 'Tis sinking, I am in pain, my heart is burning, burning. But 'tis for thy sorrow, Kanda, the heart within me is yearning. 3. As grass, as a tree I perish, as a waterless river I dry. But 'tis for thy sorrow, Kanda, my heart within me is yearning. 4. As rain on a lake at the mountain foot are the tears that fall from my eyes. But 'tis for thy sorrow, Kanda, my heart within me is yearning. Part 2. Thus did the great being lament in 4 stanzas, and lying upon his couch of flowers, he lost consciousness and turned away. The king stood where he was, but the other fairy did not know that the great being was wounded, not even when he uttered his lament, being intoxicated with her own delight. Seeing him lie there, turned away and lifeless, she began to wonder what could be the matter with her lord. As she examined him, she saw the blood oozing from the mouth of the wound, and begun unable to bear the great pain of sorrow for her beloved husband, she cried out with a loud voice. The fairy must be dead, thought the king, and he came out and showed himself. When Kanda beheld him, she thought, this must be the brigand who has slain my dear husband. And trembling, she took to flight. Standing upon the hilltop, she denounced the king in 5 stanzas. 5. Yon evil prince, ah, woe is me, my husband dear did wound. Woe who there beneath a woodland tree now lies upon the ground. 6. O prince, the woe that wrings my heart, may thy own mother pray. The woe that wrings my heart, to see my fairy dead this day. 7. Yea, prince, the woe that wrings my heart, may thy own wife repay. The woe that wrings my heart, to see my fairy dead this day. 8. And may thy mother mourn her lord, and may she mourn her son, who on my lord most innocent for lust this deed has done. 9. And may thy wife look on and see the loss of lord and son. For thou upon my harmless lord for less this deed hast done. When she had thus made her moan in these 5 stanzas, standing upon the mountain top, the king comforted her by saying another stanza. 10. Weep not nor grieve, the woodland dark has blinded you, I ween. A royal house shall honor thee, and thou shalt be my queen. What is this word thou hast said? Cried Kanda when she heard it. And loud as a lion's roar, she declaimed the next stanza. 11. No, I will surely slay myself. Thine I will never be, who slew my husband innocent, and all for lust for me. When he heard this, his passion left him, and he recited another stanza. 12. Live if thou wilt, O timid one, to Himalaya go. Creatures that feed on shrub and tree, the woodland love I know. Part 3. With these words he departed indifferent. Kanda, so soon as she knew him, gone came up, and embracing the great being, took him up to the hilltop, and laid him on the flat land there. Placing his head on her lap, she made her moan in 12 stanzas. 13. Here in the hills and mountain caves, in many a glen and grot, what shall I do, O fairy mine, now that I see thee not? 14. The wild beasts range, the leaves spread on many a lovely spot. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now that I see thee not? 15. The wild beasts range, sweet flowers spread on many a lovely spot. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now that I see thee not? 16. Clear run the rivers down the hills, with flowers all overgrown. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now thou hast left me lone? 17. Blue are the Himalaya hills, most fair they are to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 18. Gold tips the Himalaya hills, most fair they are to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 19. The Himalaya hills glow red, most fair they are to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 20. Sharp are the Himalaya peaks, they are most fair to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 21. White gleam the Himalaya peaks, they are most fair to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 22. The Himalaya rainbow-hued, most fair it is to see. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now I behold not thee? 23. Hill fragrant is to goblins dear, plants cover every spot. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now that I see thee not? 24. The fairies love the fragrant hill, plants cover every spot. What shall I do, O fairy mine, now that I see thee not? Part 4. So did she make her moan, and putting the hand of the great being on her breast, she felt that it was still warm. Kanda lives yet, she thought. I will taunt the gods until I bring him to life again. Then she cried aloud, taunting them. Are there none who govern the world? Are they on a journey? Or peradventure they are dead, and therefore save not my dear husband? By the power of her pain, Saka's throne became hot. Pondering, he perceived the cause. In the form of a Brahmin he approached, and from a water pot took water, and sprinkled the great being with it. On the instant the poison ceased to act. His color returned. He knew not so much as the place where the wound had been. the great being stood up quite well. Kanda, seeing her well-beloved husband to be whole, in joy fell at the feet of Saka and sang his praise in the following stanza. 25. Praise, holy Brahman, who didst give unto a hapless wife her well-loved husband, sprinkling with him with the elixir of life. Saka then gave this advice. From this time forth go not down from the mountain of the moon among the paths of men, but abide here. Twice he repeated this, and then returned to his own place. And Kanda said to her husband, Why stay here in danger, my lord? Come, let us go to the mountain of the moon, reciting the last stanza. 26. To the mountain let us go, where the lovely rivers flow, rivers all overgrown with flowers, there forever, while the breeze whispers in 1,000 trees, charm with talk the happy hours. C. Conclusion. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, Not now only, but long ago as now, she was devoted and faithful of heart to me. Then he identified the birth. At that time, Anuruddha was the king, Rahula's mother was Kanda, and I myself was the fairy. Lesson number 3. Welcome to Dhyam Moa Pagoda. A. Introduction. Suppose you are staying at Dhyam Moa Pagoda in Hua, where tourists come every day to see sights. Act out the role of a tourist guide in one of their visits to your pagoda. Hello, brother, sister. We are students from Ho Chi Minh City, coming here for the first time. We'd like to see the most famous ancient pagoda as soon as we arrive in our ancient capital. Hello, friends. Welcome to our pagoda. Let me introduce myself to you, and you know one more friend. I'm a graduate from the VN Buddhist Academy in Ho Chi Minh City, too. I've just come back to my hometown after graduation day. I'm glad to receive you at our pagoda, and if you like, I'll be your guide today. What a wonderful idea! We've been longing to spend a vacation in Hua and make a tour to such beautiful spots as the Citadel, the Royal Palace, and Royal Tombs, and above all, Dhyam Moa Pagoda, the symbol of Hua thoughts the ages. We've seen a lot of pictures of your pagoda in books and on TV, but it's much more interesting to see it with our own eyes now. Would you please tell us a brief history of your pagoda? Sure. Let's go inside and have some tea and fruit before going around the site and talking about it. B. Main divisions. Part 1. The origin of the pagoda. When and where was the pagoda founded? According to Chao Gan Nuk, Modern Records of Province, it was founded long ago and was rebuilt at the beginning of the 17th century, 1601, by order of Lord Nguyen Huang on Hill Ha Ko, Huang Long Hamlet, Dua Diem Province. Why is it called Diem Moa? A legend said that on one occasion, Lord Nguyen Huang made a sightseeing tour to this wonderful hill. There he was told about a white-haired lady in a red robe and blue trousers sitting on the hilltop saying, "A righteous Lord will come here someday to rebuild a pagoda on this holy place as the solid foundation of his reign." Then she disappeared. In memory of the old lady, the hill has since been popularly known as Mount Dhyam Moa, the Holy Lady's Mount, where the pagoda was rebuilt and named Dhyam Moa Pagoda, meaning the Holy Lady's Pagoda by order of the Lord. Under King Du Duc, it was renamed Lin Moa. Lin or Dien has the same meaning as sacred, holy, divine in English as well as Vietnamese. Was the former pagoda the same structure as this one? No. In its early days, it was only a simple place of worship without any artistic works. In 1665, Lord Nguyen Phuc Don had it rebuilt on a small scale. Would you tell us something about one of the earliest well-known abbots of the pagoda? By the end of the 17th century, 1695, Dak Niam, a Chinese Chan master of Jiangde origin and famous monk scholar of the Cao Tang sect, made a sea voyage to South Vietnam at the request of Lord Nguyen Phuc Chu to celebrate a higher ordination ceremony at Diem Nam Pagoda in Hue on the occasion of the Buddha's birth anniversary in 1695, the year of the pig. Later, he was appointed abbot of Diem Mua Pagoda by the Lord. From this pagoda, he set out his preaching towards southwards the following year. Paragraph 2. The Great Bell. When was the Great Bell cast? In 1710, Lord Nguyen Phuc Chu had the Great Bell cast. The bell, weighing 3.280 gun, over 2,000 kilos, is 1 meter 5 high and 1 meter 2 wide. It's really an invaluable work of art, the sounds of which have since aroused deep feelings in the heart of Hua residents as well as visitors, and it has become a boundless source of inspiration for folk songs and poems. Would you sing a popular folk song to us, friend? As drooping bamboo branches are dangling in the gentle breeze, the Linmua bell sounds are echoing, and the Do Shuang night watch is making an announcement with drum beats. What a lovely folk song! It expresses the peaceful scenery where the pagoda is located, and its bell sounds are in harmony with the drum beats of a night watch and the rustling of bamboo leaves in the breeze. Well, could you do us one more favor by reciting a famous poem relating to the pagoda? Yes, of course. Diem Mua Pagoda was classified by King Diu Di among 20 typical famous beauty spots of the royal capital. This is a poem of eulogy to the pagoda entitled The Diem Mua Bell Sounds, composed by the king. Please listen carefully, and I will speak. The Diem Mua Bell Sounds by King Diu Di. On the high hill stands the ancient pagoda, safeguarding the riverfront. Meanwhile, in the permanent heaven forever reigns the full-orbed moon. The 108 bell sounds seem to dispel all troubles and worries of human bondage, and awaken all sentient beings in the 3,000 world system to the cause of their existence in the past, the present, and the future. The world veiled in the dark vibrates as the bell is struck at noontide, and the sound of sutra recitation in the morning convey the wonderful qualities of the noble path. The Buddha's blessings and King's merits are indeed all-pervading, for good begets good is the universal law. How wonderful it is to hear such an impressive eulogy poem from a Buddhist king to a Buddhist pagoda. It reveals the king's religious piety and great admiration for his ancestors' merits of constructing this magnificent pagoda for Buddhist prosperity in the early days of the southern expansion. Indeed, the Nguyen lords made a great contribution to the Buddhist propagation in the last 3 centuries in South Vietnam. Part 3. The pagoda's large-scale reconstruction in the 18th century. When was the pagoda reconstructed on a large scale? In 1714, Lord Nguyen Phuc Chu ordered a large-scale reconstruction comprising various stately buildings such as the Triple Gate, the 4 Heavenly Kings Shrine, the Emperor of Jade Shrine, the Shrine to the 10 Kings of the Netherworld, the Yama World, the Preaching Hall, the Treasury for Holy Textbooks, the Bell Tower, the Drum Tower, the Ban Tui House, the 3B House, the Meditation Hall, the Great Mercy Shrine, the Healing Master Shrine, and chambers for monks. In addition, the monks there were allowed to spend a 3-month summer retreat at Di Da Park, and later some of them were sent to China to make a request for over 1,000 volumes of the Mahayana Tripitaka, the 3 baskets of the holy scriptures of developing Buddhism, which were brought back to Vietnam and preserved in the canon treasury. In the early 19th century, King Nha Long and King Minh Mang had the pagoda repaired in such places as the Great Hero Shrine, the Maitreya Shrine, the Avalokitesvara Great Mercy Shrine, the Canon Treasury, and the Shrine to the Netherworld's 10 Kings. When was the stupa erected? It was first erected in 1844 by order of King Diao Di. At first it was called Du Nhan, and later renamed Huoc Du Yang. It is a 7-story brick tower, 21 meters high, each story of which contains a Buddha statue. For over 150 years now, the stupa has reflected its majestic image in the romantic perfume river, evoking indescribable feelings to countless visitors coming from everywhere on earth. In front of the stupa was a Huang Nguyen 3-fold pavilion with a skillfully carved wooden framework. On both sides are the stele houses where the details of the erection of Huoc Du Yang stupa, Huang Nguyen pavilion, and many poems composed by King Diao Di were inscribed. Well, has the pagoda been kept intact until today? No. It was seriously damaged by a heavy storm which swept through the ancient capital in the year of the dragon, 1904, and was restored by order of King Dan Dai in 1907. Since then, the most venerable abbot, Thich Nhat Hanh, and other monks, nuns, and lay Buddhists have participated in the reconstruction of the pagoda. Though smaller in size, it retains its former magnificence and majesty. Today, you visitors can see the Huoc Du Yang stupa and the stone-paved floor of the former Huang Nguyen pavilion right after climbing up 15 steps leading to the Triple Gate. There remain 2 stele houses on both sides of the floor near a stele house and a bell house of the stupa. Part 4. The Buddha Shrine and the Late Abbot's Stupa. Now, dear friend, we'd like to go to the Buddha Shrine and do the Buddha homage. Well, let's go to an enclosure inside a stone wall through Nhi Mon Gate, and you could see the Great Hero Shrine, the Earth Store, Kshitigarbha Shrine, and the Great Mercy Shrine. How is the Great Hero Shrine decorated? It is simply decorated with the Buddha Maitreya statue in the forefront, flanked by a bell and a rare stone gong. In the central altar, ornately carved, brilliantly gilded, and vermilion painted, you can see the 3 statues of the Buddha's Trikaya, 3-fold body, namely Dharmakaya, the symbol of the essence or substance of Dharma, Sambhogakaya, the symbol of the Buddha nature, and Nirmanakaya, the symbol of the created body. In front are the Buddha's Sakyamuni statue and a low table with a small bell and a wooden fish. On both sides of the central altar are altered to the Bodhisattva Manjushri, the wonderful voice, and the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, the universal sage. Where is the most venerable late abbot Thich Nhat Hanh stupa? We'd like to offer incense, joss sticks, in honor of the most venerable late abbot who devoted all his life to the cause of Dharma propagation in Vietnam. All right, let's go to the pine grove where the late abbot stupa is located, and you can see how we Buddhists worship our revered master every day. What a picturesque setting it is! The calm stupa, closely surrounded with whispering pine trees, is really attractive. Let's have some photographs taken together right here as a souvenir of our trip. And lastly, please show us the way back to the BUDDHISM stupa and the stele houses before leaving. Kindly step this way, please, and you'll see the inscription on the stele erected in 1715 by Lord Nguyen Book II in praise of the most celebrated ancient pagoda in Hua. How beautiful is the landscape in South Vietnam today. How imposing is the pagoda, on the gate of which reflects the sunlight. As nature is calm and pure, water is murmuring out of a spring. Now that the country is peaceful, life is easy and carefree everywhere. C. Saying goodbye. Dear friend, we've been longing for a visit to Diem Mua Pagoda since we were still very young, and today our dream has come true. We'd like to say the most sincere thanks for your kind hospitality. We've learnt lots of wonderful information about the poetic pagoda from you. We'll tell them to our friends in Ho Chi Minh City and ask them to join us in our next trip to Hue. We really appreciate your talk. This is one of our unforgettable journeys. We've even made it in our school life. Thanks a lot. We hope we're not disturbing you today. Not at all. You're not bothering me, friends. I'm very glad we have this opportunity to meet and talk about our pagoda. Moreover, I'm delighted at your deep interest in learning such various things about Hua's beauty spots. I hope to see you in Ho Chi Minh City when I continue my postgraduate studies there. Goodbye and a good trip to you all. We've enjoyed seeing you. We'd better get going now. I hope we'll meet again soon. Thanks again for the morning. Goodbye. Lesson number 4. Welcome to Vinh Nghiem Pagoda. Suppose you are living at Vinh Nghiem Pagoda, which receives hundreds of visitors every day. Take the role of a receptionist and act out the dialogue between him and foreign visitors. A. Introduction. Hello, brother. We're Japanese students at the Department of Asian Studies at the University of Ho Chi Minh City. We've just been here for a few days, and we'd like to see your pagoda as soon as possible. Welcome to our pagoda. I'm a fourth-year monk student at the Vietnam Buddhist Academy in this city. Some classmates of mine and I are residents here. We're glad to make your acquaintance. You're from Japan, a country of Buddhist temples, and maybe you want to know some typical features of our Vietnamese pagodas, don't you? That's right. We're anxious to visit Vietnamese famous pagodas, especially this pagoda. We're really impressed by the great stupa whenever we ride past the triple gate of the pagoda. We're very lucky to meet you today. We hope to learn a lot of interesting things about the most famous pagoda in this city. Well, let's go to the reception room to have some tea first. This way, please. B. Main divisions. Part 1. The origin and location of the pagoda. When was this pagoda built? It was built from 1964 to 1971 after a plan drawn by the architect Nguyen Ba Nang and his colleagues. What design is it? It is a V-shaped two-story building with an Oriental-style double roof. Why is it named Vinh Nghiem? It is named after Vinh Nghiem, after a Buddhist cultural center of the TRāt N sect headed by the TRāt N Trinity, 3 patriots, TRāt N, Bap Loa, Huyen Quang, under the Tran reign in former Bac Giang province, present A Bac province. It's also the religious title of Patriarch Dan Han, 1838 to 1936, a dignified Chan master who was once consecrated North Vietnam Buddha Sangha president. According to the charter of the former unified Vietnamese Buddhist Sangha, all Buddhists of northern origin living in South Vietnam belong to the Vinh Nghiem community seated at the central patriarchal house. What a large auditorium! Is it the preaching hall of your pagoda? Yes, it is. We have lectures on the Dhamma every Sunday morning here. Hundreds of people come to hear Dhamma talks given by various Dhamma teachers. What are the towers on the upper courtyard? They are the Avalokitesvara Stupa on the left and the bell tower on the right. The great bell inside is a rare gift from the Japanese Buddhist Sangha, you know? Really? It is a good chance that we can see a valuable gift donated by our fellow people as a sign of friendship between the two Buddhist brotherhoods. Now, let's go inside the main hall, and you'll see many other priceless donations offered by devotees to the Triple Gem. Part 2. The main hall and altar decoration. How splendid the main hall is! How long and how wide is it? It is 22 meters wide and 35 meters long. Have you ever seen such wooden net-like panels around the altars before? Never. What are they? They are carvings that look like nets with such images as the 4 sacred animals, that is, the dragon, the unicorn, the tortoise, and the phoenix, typical of Chinese traditional art, and the 9 dragons sprinkling water at the Buddha's birthplace in Lumbini Park, North India, modern Nepal. Let's look closer at the panels to see how lovely they are. The craftsmen in your country are skillful indeed at such meticulous works of art. Yes, of course. They were well-known carvers coming here from many towns and villages in North and South Vietnam. They had learnt the art of carving on wood, silver, and bronze, handed down from generations to generations in their native land. Now look at the altars decorated with reliefs of famous Asian pagodas. Above are horizontal boards inscribed with Chinese calligraphy, and on both sides of each altar are vertical boards with parallel sentences. All are gilded and vermilion painted. Besides, there are paintings depicting Buddhist legends. Wonderful! We really admire them. We can't imagine how much time and effort were spent on these elaborate and painstaking works of art. Those gilded craftsmen and painters must have been devout Buddhists who wished to make their own contribution to the Dharma prosperity in your country, we believe. That's right. Buddhism was once a state religion under the Li and Han dynasties from the 11th century to the 14th century, when many kings, courtiers, and scholars, as well as common people, became Buddhist monks. It is called the Golden Age of Vietnamese Buddhism, and the Druk Lam Chan sect, the unique Vietnamese Chan sect headed by Druk Lam Trinity on Mount Yan Du, is the symbol of Vietnamese Buddhist summit. Even today, though Buddhist influence is not as widespread as it was before, a large number of Vietnamese people are Buddhist. In Japan, Buddhism has been a state religion for many centuries, and Buddhism has had a great influence on various social activities. So the Vietnamese and Japanese have shared the same belief in Lord Buddha Sakyamuni for such a long time. Well, look at the Buddha statue in the central altar, flanked by the Bodhisattva Samantabhadras, the symbol of virtue, and the Bodhisattva Manjushris, the symbol of wisdom. The golden-hued statue is really majestic. Let's do the Buddha homage, friends. Part 3. Interior and exterior decoration. The Avalokitesvara Stupa. On both sides of the central altars are statues of the Buddha's holy disciples, such as the Venerable Sariputta, Kassapa the Great, Ananda, Rahula. You know? They were classified among the preeminent ones by the Buddha himself. Now I'd like to tell you something about these 6 wooden Arahant reliefs illustrating the almsgiving to the Arahants, the gift offering to Arahants, the learner admonishing Arahants, the Dhamma preaching and hearing Arahants, the sinner-saving arhants in the sword, mountain purgatory, the sinner-saving arhants in the icy purgatory. Each arhat is escorted by 2 yakshas bearing candles in honor of the Buddha. These wooden carvings are imitations of the Japanese Pure Land School's originals. What impressive carvings! They show us how the Buddha's holy disciples practiced the Buddha Dharma and worked for other beings' salvation wherever possible, even in the most dangerous situations, such as the sword mountain purgatory, the icy purgatory. The Buddha's holy disciples are indeed worthy of reverence and offering, their incomparable field of merits in the world. And these are bronze statues of Vajra gods, Dharma guardians, on both sides of the corridor, one for good and the other against evil. I think there are Vajra statues in Japanese temples, aren't there? Yeah, sure. The Pure Land School is very popular in Japan, so we see many similarities in altar decoration between the Vietnamese pagodas and the Japanese ones. But why does this pagoda roof have curved ends? We seldom see such curved roof ends anywhere else. The curved roof ends are typical of the northern pagoda style, with a double front roof topped by a dharma wheel. Moreover, they are all phoenix-headed shaped. Now, let's go to the Avalokitesvara Stupa on the left, and you can take some photographs of the famous 7-story square stupa of our city. How high is it, and how much does it cover? It's 35 meters high from the ground, and it covers about 50 square meters on a 200 square meter upper yard. Each roof edge on the first story is 7 meters long. On both sides of the entrance are the Vajra gods' relief sculptures, 148 meters high and 74 meters wide. Along the walls of the 7 stories, there are 27 relief sculptures of the 7 past Buddhas and many Dharma patriarchs. Now, friends, let's have some photos taken together at the entrance before entering to see each story. Part 4. The High School of Buddhist Studies. The Public Relic Stupa, the present abbot. What is that building over there? It's the seat of the High School of Buddhist Studies in Ho Chi Minh City, where the students attend a 4-year course before going to the Vietnam Buddhist Academy through an entrance examination if they wish to. Vinh An Yum is both the greatest pagoda of our city and a Buddhist cultural center, so it receives hundreds of pilgrims and visitors every day, especially on the occasion of the Buddha's birthday on the full moon day of the 4th lunar month, the filial piety day on the full moon day of the 7th month, Lunar New Year's Eve, and Lunar New Year's Day. The yard is crowded with people. Some of them are foreigners or officials who come on their working visit to our city and are very surprised to see incense burning everywhere. What is the stupa in back of the pagoda? It's the public relic stupa erected in 1982 as a place of worship to laymen's relics. It's a 4-level tower representing Vietnamese architecture. One more question. Could you tell us who the present abbot is? He's the most venerable Dik Dang Khiem, one of the highest dignitaries of the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. He's a well-learned monk scholar who made his Buddhist studies abroad, especially in Japan several decades ago. He has written many pieces of research on Buddhism in India, in China, and in Japan. He's now teaching the history of Chinese Buddhism and Japanese Buddhism, as well as the code of Mahayanist rules at our Institute of Advanced Buddhist Studies. How old is he? He's nearly 80, but he is still very healthy and hardworking. He is really a very active religious worker for the cause of Dharma propagation in our country. Great! We admire him. We hope you'll kindly introduce us to the abbot in our next visit to your pagoda so that we can wait upon him and hear him talk about the Dhamma in Japanese. C. Saying goodbye. Well, we must be going to school now. We've just had a wonderful time with you here. We can't thank you enough for the full explanation you've given us today. You've supplied us with very valuable information about the most famous pagoda in your city. We hope to arrange our next visit to your pagoda on the occasion of the Buddha's birthday to see how beautifully the municipal Buddhist Sangha celebrate the most important holiday of all Buddhists in this magnificent pagoda. Thanks once more for taking time to explain everything to us. This is one of the most enjoyable visits we've even made in your city. You're an excellent guide. I appreciate your compliment. I'm glad you've enjoyed your visit to our pagoda. I hope you'll join us here on the Buddha's birthday anniversary. Goodbye. Goodbye. See you later. Lesson number 5. A brief history of Vietnamese Buddhism. Introduction. Vietnamese Buddhism has a long history of more than 2,000 years. Its origin dates back to the 3rd century BC, where numerous Buddhist missions were sent abroad by Emperor Asoka to disseminate Lord Buddha's teaching in such distant countries beyond the borders of India as those in Africa, West and Central Asia, as well as Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, Burma, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and North Vietnam, which was known then as Giao Trois, modern Bac Ninh province. Vietnamese Buddhism can be roughly divided into 4 periods. 1. From its beginning in ancient times to the 10th century. 2. Its golden age from the 11th century to the 14th century. 3. Its decline in the 15th century and its restoration in later centuries. 4. Contemporary Vietnamese Buddhism and its activities in the present situation. 1. Vietnamese Buddhism from ancient times to the 10th century. It is believed that among the 3 Buddhist centers of ancient China, Luoyang, Pengcheng, and Lui Lao Center in the Giao Trois, South China, was then the first to be founded under the Han Dynasty around the early part of the 1st century AD. Lui Lao, the capital of Giao Trois, which was then a Chinese vassal, was on the main trade route between India and China. Therefore, undoubtedly, it became a favorable and prosperous resort for India pioneer missionaries to stay and preach the Buddha's teachings before continuing their journey to the north. The order of Giao Trois monks was founded before Buddhism spread to other places. From the evidence of historical records under the latter Eastern Han Dynasty, we may conclude that Lui Lao was the first to adopt the new faith from Indian monks who gradually found their way to the north, i.e. South China and the Yangtze River Valley, and then to Luoyang, the capital of China, where the 2 older Buddhist centers were successfully founded. According to the documents recorded in Dien Yun Dap An, an anthology of the most talented figures in Chan Park, our most ancient Buddhist literary collection, Master Kang Sang Hui, a monk of Sogdian origin, was the first Buddhist master at Lui Lao Center. He was born in Giao Trois, where he was received into the order of monks afterwards. He became the most famous monk scholar who translated a large number of Buddhist canonical books into Chinese, Han characters, and later he visited Nanking, where he built the first pagoda and preached the Dhamma. Besides Master Kang Sang Hui, there were many famous Indian monk scholars, such as Mahajivaka, Kala Ruchi, Chi Kang Nan, and a Chinese scholar, Mao Po, Mui Tzu, who immigrated to Giao Trois and studied Buddhism under Indian monks there. At that time, there were about 20 pagodas with at least 15 translations of Buddhist textbooks and 500 monks at Lui Lao Center. The Buddha Sutta in 42 sections, which appeared at Jiao Tra in the 2nd century, is believed to be the first section of suttas translated into Chinese at Lui Lao. Therefore, one of the characteristics of Vietnamese Buddhism in ancient times is that it had been introduced by Indian missionaries into Jiao Tra long before it spread to China. The literary evidence in the above translations proved that in its very beginning, Vietnamese Buddhism adopted the fundamentals of Orthodox Buddhism from Indian monks, and in later centuries, with the development of Buddhism in China, it received another trend of Buddhist thought, the Mahayana doctrine, especially Chinese Chan Buddhism. Another salient feature of Vietnamese Buddhism is that it has been closely connected with national life, and Buddhist monks have made their active contribution to the construction and protection of their country. The best learned class of society, Vietnamese monks practiced their religion side by side with common people and were on friendly terms with members of other religions such as Taoism, Confucianism. A large number of Chan masters were great Confucianist scholars who, besides their religious duty, played an important part in social life. They might have made use of favorable conditions of Chinese Buddhism under the Sui in the 6th century AD and the Tang dynasties in the 7th and 8th centuries in order to develop Vietnamese Buddhism and further a national movement for liberation from Chinese yoke. The first period of Dai Viet's independence began with King Li Nam De, who highly honored Buddhism and used to consult Buddhist monks and follow their advice on religious and worldly affairs in protecting the young nation against foreign invasions. Finally came the glorious victory at the Bac Dag River in 930, which opened a new page of Dai Viet history. 2. The period of national independence from the 11th century to the 14th century, the golden age of Vietnamese Buddhism. The 10th century marked a new era of both the independence of Dai Viet nation and the prosperity of Vietnamese Buddhism. Many Buddhist monks were engaged in politics under the Dinh 968 to 980, the former Na 980 to 1009, the Li 1010 to 1225, and the Tran 1225 to 1400 dynasties. Some were appointed both state counselors and national teachers, such as Chan masters Quang Viet, Pap Tran, Bien Chung, and above all, Chan master Van Han to 1018, who made his great contribution to the enthroning of King Li Dai Do, the founder of the Li region, and was later granted the title Songha President. As a monk of great talent, he devoted himself to the teaching of the Dhamma and the construction of his kingdom. Yet, he remained aloof from worldly life. His philosophical attitude was perfectly expressed in his serene and noble utterance before his death. Our bodily form is like a lightning flash that comes to naught. All plants prosper in spring and wither in autumn. Despite all the ups and downs of fortune, we feel no fear, for these are mere dewdrops on the grass tips. Another brilliant figure of the speechless understanding sect under the Li reign was Man Yak Chan Master, 1052 to 1096, a monk scholar renowned for his wide knowledge of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. During his lifetime, he was highly honored by King Li Nan Dong and was considered national teacher and leader of the Buddhist order then. But he lived a calm life amid the honor bestowed on him by the king, and his calmness before the arising and the passing away of all things manifested itself in his final utterance to his disciples, which has since been recognized by numerous literary critics as a wonderful combination of Buddhism and poetry. When spring goes, all flowers fall. When spring comes, all flowers bloom. As things roll on before our eyes, old age comes up to our head. However, say not that all flowers fall at the end of spring, for there has blossomed an apricot branch in the front yard since last night. He was granted by the king the posthumous title Man Yak Dien Zu, which means the fully awakened Chan Master. The prosperity of Vietnamese Buddhism reached its height under the Li and the Zhang dynasties during 4 centuries. King Li Dai Do and his successors were devout Buddhist supporters and patrons who officially recognized Buddhism as a state religion and ruled righteously in accordance with the 10 duties of a king, Dasarajadhamma. They showed their great compassion and tolerance toward their people, even criminals, prisoners, and foreign enemies or rebels. By order of the kings, thousands of pagodas and stupas were built all around the country, among which one pillar pagoda in Hanoi was the most famous. Some of the kings resigned their powers after a time of reigning and became Chan masters such as Li Dai Do, Li Dan Don, Li An Don, Li Gao Don, Zhang Dai Don, in particular King Zhang Nan Don, 1258 to 1308. A great Buddhist scholar who, after his 2 victories over the Mongols, Yuan Meng, abdicated and became the founder of the Juk Lam Bamboo Grove Chan sect at Mount Nhan Du. It was the first Vietnamese Chan sect that had ever been founded, and the king was consecrated the first patriarch of the Juk Lan Chan sect of Vietnam, the others being Vinitrakuki, an Indian monk, Wu Yan Dong, a Chinese, and Cao Tong, a Chinese. It was under his leadership that the 3 Chan sects, Vinitrakuki, Wu Tuan Tuang Speechless Understanding, and Cao Tong Hermitage, were unified into one Vietnamese Chan sect. During the Golden Age, Vietnamese Buddhist thought, literature, and architecture were best developed in poetry, in prose, and in various works of arts. Above all, the achievement of engraving Buddhist scriptures, which lasted 24 years, 1295 to 1319, at Kun Lam Pagoda under the auspices of King Zhang An Dong, was the most influential one. The great task was carried out by Master Pop Loa, 1284 to 1330, the second patriarch of the Juk Lam Chang sect, alongside hundreds of monks and lay followers, making over 5,000 engravings of Buddhist scriptures, including those composed by the Juk Lam sect. Master Pop Loa made his best contribution to the growth of over 15,000 monks in more than 200 Juk Lam monasteries then. Next to Pop Loa was Huyan Quang, 1254 to 1334, thus forming the Trinity of Juk Lam patriarchs, the symbol of the Vietnamese Buddhist Golden Age. What is essential of Juk Lam Cham Buddhism is that it lays the emphasis on the mental cultivation in whatever condition one may live. It is a mind-oriented training for every Buddhist, whether she or he is a monk, a nun, or a lay follower. This way of practicing the Dhamma is best expressed in a hymn entitled Gu Dan Lak Dao Bu, Taking Delight in Religion While Dwelling in the World, composed by King Dan Nan Dong, the first Juk Lam patriarch, who concluded the hymn with the following reputable verse. Let's take delight in religion in whatever condition we may live. Let's eat when hungry and sleep when tired. Within ourselves lies the gem, so let's give up searching elsewhere. When our mind is detached from the surroundings, there is no more question of concentration. The detachment or the mental peace that is to be won within oneself in any condition of life is illustrated by the calm image of a sage sitting cross-legged on a grass couch, watching the fallen petals of the roses and undisturbed by the fading of spring. Having found out his real face is in the poem, The Fading of Spring. It was through the understanding the nature of form and void that my heart used to be attached to hundreds of flowers in springtime. Now that I have discovered the crown prince's real face, detached, I sit cross-legged on a grass couch, watching the fallen petals of roses. The first Duke Lam patriarch set a shining example of virtuous and wise men, who having performed the duty of a heroic king, became an ardent meditator, and Dhamma master, well versed in the Holy Scriptures. Following the guideline, the practice of mental culture and the study of the doctrine must go in pairs. He ordered his Dhamma heir, Pap Loa, to carry out the task of engraving the Buddhist canon. It was the greatest achievement that had ever been made by the second Duke Lam patriarch and his colleagues, his disciples, besides innumerable monks, nuns, and laymen. Like the first Duke Lam patriarch, Master Pap Loa was a very enthusiastic religious leader who devoted all his life to the Dhamma propagation and the prosperity of the Duke Lam order of monks. In 1313, by order of the king, he took up his residence at Vinh Anh Am Pagoda, Bac Giang province, which served as the seat of the Duke Lam sect. Since then, Master Pap Loa played the leader in preaching the doctrine and receiving over 3,000 disciples into the order, many of whom became well-known Dhamma preachers of the time. Next to Pap Loa was Huyan Quang, a great monk, scholar, and poet, who enjoyed a secluded life at Mount Gong San after 20 years of serving the court and assisting the first patriarch in propagating the doctrine and compiling various pieces of writing about Vietnamese Chan Buddhism. Living in seclusion amidst natural surroundings, he experienced the joy and peace of a person who really merged with everything around. Whether walking, standing, lying, or sitting, he felt light-hearted and would utter such wonderful stanzas as those in an ode to the chrysanthemum. The flowers are in the court and the man is on the upper floor, sitting alone, carefree, contemplating the incense smoke pervading everywhere. There is no more discrimination between the subject and the object. Just as a flower bud among them bursts open. Another interesting feature of Lijan Buddhism is its trend of blending Buddhism with Taoism and Confucianism. This growing tendency of combining three religions together in a harmonious way, resulting in producing many experts in the three branches of learning. Many of them were Chan masters, kings, and court mandarins who played a very active role as leaders in several struggles against the Sung's army and later the Mongols' invasion. In peacetime as well as in wartime, these Buddhists made their great effort to bring welfare and happiness to their nation. In the period of unprecedented prosperity of Vietnamese Buddhism, both Taoism and Confucianism were also well developed and very popular with all social classes. 3. The decline of Vietnamese Buddhism in the 15th century and its restoration in later centuries. By the end of the Tran dynasty, as Confucianist scholars gained their monopoly at court, Buddhism gradually lost its influence, especially after the invasion of the Ming in 1414. Dai Viet became a Chinese vassal again, and the Ming rulers oppressed Vietnamese Buddhists by confiscating most of the Buddhist textbooks in Dai Viet and sending them to Chin Lung and destroying a large number of pagodas. Moreover, numerous talented monks were sent to China in exile. All that lay in the policy of assimilating the Vietnamese into the Chinese and spreading Confucianism as the only dominating doctrine, while keeping Buddhism and Taoism under strict control. After a 10-year fight against the Ming, finally came the victory won by Le Loi, the national hero who founded the latter Le. But Buddhism was in unfavorable condition then. By King Le Dai Do's order, Buddhist monks had to pass an examination, or they had to return to secular life. Confucianism had a great influence on the king, and especially on the intellectuals of the time, since it was the best way leading to power and glory at court. What remained fortunate was that Buddhism had been so deeply rooted in all classes of people that they constantly kept their faith alive in hard times by building pagodas, temples, and reprinting Buddhist scriptures, despite Confucianist scholars' strong opposition and the king's exclusive order. In the 16th century and during the Dring-Nguyen conflict lasting about 300 years, the Drin and Nguyen lords tried to restore Buddhism and win people's hearts. In particular, the Nguyen lords tried their best to make Buddhism prosperous on the new land during the 3-century southward expansion. Many of them were devout Buddhists, such as Lord Nguyen Hong, Lord Nguyen Buk Ju, King Jiao Long, King Min Mong, King Diet Thi, who decreed the building or renovating of lots of well-known pagodas or stupas, such as Tianhua Pagoda in Hua, by Lord Nguyen Hong's decree in 1601, Buok Duyan Stupa, Jian Do, Bao Kwak Pagoda, An Don Du Ram Pagoda, Glok Am Pagoda, Liu Di Pagoda. The Nguyen lords and kings granted many pagodas a royal charter board and approved tax exemptions for their farming land. In the 17th century, a number of Chinese monks came to Vietnam and founded such Chan sects as the Lin Chi sect and the Cao Tong sect. They were warmly received by the Jin, who, at the same time, encouraged the restoration of the Drak Lab Chan sect. One of the brilliant torchlights of Vietnamese Buddhist Sangha in North Vietnam, Nang Nguyen, was Chan Master Chan Nguyen, who was conferred the title of Sangha President by King Na Du Dong. The master and his excellent disciples, Nu Hian, Nu Truong, made their great effort to restore the Druk Lam Chan sect tradition and reprint numerous literary works composed by Druk Lam patriarchs. Another outstanding figure was Master Huang Hai, who preached the doctrine at Nuyet Dong Monastery to thousands of disciples. Some of them became very famous and were later appointed Sangha presidents. In the south, Nang Dong, the Nguyen lords heartily welcomed numerous Chan masters from China. They founded the Lin Chi sect and the Cao Tug sect and built pagodas in many new provinces, while the lords pacified the territory extended southwards. Besides, Vietnamese Chan masters tried their best to restore Vietnamese Buddhism. Among them, Chan master Liao Quan was considered the leader of the Buddhist restoration. He preached the doctrine in many provinces and was highly esteemed by the Nguyen. He belonged to the Lin Chi sect, but his teaching was colored by Vietnamese way of thinking, since he tried to remodel the religion imported from China, making it completely Vietnamese and lively in such aspects as rites and hymns or poems. His chief disciples continued to spread this way of teaching throughout the South, and the influence of this Chan sect could be found even in the Buddhist restoration in the 20th century. From the beginning of the French colonialist domination over Vietnam, the condition of Buddhism was obviously worse. Under the Nguyen dynasty, Buddhism got violent opposition from courtiers who were Confucianist scholars, while it was neglected by most of the kings who were not zealous Buddhist supporters. In addition, as a time-honored religion, Buddhism was confronted with many difficulties from the French colonial government. 4. Contemporary Vietnamese Buddhism and its activities at home and abroad. Under the influence of Chinese Buddhist restoration in 1920, there was a movement for the restoration of Vietnamese Buddhism headed by Master Kang Ho, and many Buddhist associations were established in South Vietnam, Central Vietnam, and North Vietnam from 1931 to 1934. The Buddhist Reformation received great approval from Buddhists, especially the intellectuals in all over the country, but it was interrupted by World War II. In 1948, the United Vietnam Buddhist Association came into being, and it resumed its activities in Hanoi. Many Buddhist magazines and Vietnamese translations of Buddhist books were issued then. In Hue, the most venerable elder TRāt N and Dr. LAN Tam, a lay Buddhist scholar, founded a Buddhist institute at Duc Lam Pagoda, then the Buddhist Association of An Nam at Duc Quang Pagoda, and 2 Buddhist schools for monks and nuns. It was Dr. LAN Tam who made his best contribution to the Buddhist restoration by disseminating the Buddha's teachings in Vietnamese, founding various Buddhist youth organizations, and translating the Suramagama Sutra into Vietnamese. He was, in fact, the leading spirit of the Buddhist restoration then. In 1951, a national Buddhist conference held in Hue aimed at unifying all Buddhist associations and reorganizing the Sangha's activities. Besides, it approved the participation of Vietnamese Buddhists in the World Fellowship of Buddhists, WFB, founded in Colombo in 1950. From 1954, after the division of Vietnam into 2 regions by Geneva Agreement, Vietnamese Buddhists in the South suffered from the religious discrimination and restrictions opposed by the Diem regime until the day when its oppression grew stronger and the non-violent Buddhist demonstrations broke out all over the country. The Bodhisattva Thanh Quan Duc's self-sacrifice by burning himself alive for the cause of religion, followed by that of other Buddhist martyrs, paved the way for the overthrow of the Diem regime in 1963. In 1975, after the unification of the country, there was a movement led by the most venerable Dic Tri Du to unify all Vietnamese Buddhist sects and organizations, and then the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha was formed in 1981. The Vietnam Buddhist Sangha, VBS, headed by the most venerable Dhamma Patriarch Dic Duc Dod, approved an action program for national cooperation and harmony among all Buddhist sects, disseminating the Dhamma at its best so as to make known its special features, establishing a system of monastic education, and promoting friendship among world Buddhist organizations for peace on earth. In 1981, the Institute of Advanced Buddhist Studies, VIABS, was established in Hanoi, and in 1984, another one in Ho Chi Minh City. Their purpose is to train a new generation of well-qualified monks and nuns so that they can effectively serve the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha in various activities. The monk and nun students are instructed in both canonical and non-canonical subjects and 3 languages, Pali, English, and Chinese. The canonical subjects include the doctrines of 3 main Buddhist schools, the Theravada, Orthodox Buddhism, the Sarvastivada, the theory of the Pan-Realists, and the Mahayana, developing Buddhism. Graduate students can continue their studies at home or abroad in order to become researchers at the Vietnam Buddhist Research Institute, founded in 1989. The Vietnam Buddhist Research Institute, VBRI, as a new field of activity in the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha, undertakes the important responsibility of elucidating the Buddha's teachings, emphasizing creativeness in the Dhamma dissemination in accordance with social and scientific progress of our time. Moreover, it tries its best to widen world Buddhist activities and promote exchanges of Vietnamese Buddhist culture with those of other countries. The VBRI leadership consists of the Most Venerable Dr. Dick Minh Chau as Rector, the Most Venerable Elder Dick Dien Cao as Vice Rector in charge of the Department of Vietnamese Buddhism, the Most Venerable Dr. Dick Dien Cao at Duc Lam Buddhist Institute, Paris, France, as Vice Rector in charge of the Department of World Buddhism, the Venerable Dr. Dick Don Dan as Vice Rector in charge of the Department of Translating and Publishing the Vietnamese Tipitaka Buddhist Canon, and Mr. Bo Dinh Guong as Vice Rector in charge of the Department of Press. In addition, there are other departments such as the Department of Buddhist Specialties, the Department of Monastic Education. The great task of translating the Tipitaka from Pali, English, and Chinese into Vietnamese and publishing the Vietnamese Tipitaka has been underway since 1991. It will take about 2 decades to fulfill this assignment. As far as world activities are concerned, the VBS delegations attended the 6th and 7th ABCP General Conferences, and the Most Venerable Dr. Dick Minh Chau was elected Vice President of the ABCP leadership and President of the Vietnam ABCP National Center. In 1984, the VBS delegation attended the Roundtable Conference in New Delhi, and in particular, the VBS and the ABCP National Center hosted the conference of the ABCP Executive Council and the International Secretariat in Hanoi in 1985. In 1986, the International Year of Peace, 2 seminars on the theme Buddhism and Peace were held in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. In recent years, many VBS delegations have attended religious seminars or conferences held in different countries such as India, Sri Lanka, Japan, Australia, Rome, Italy, France, Taiwan, Canada, Thailand. In 1993, a symposium on Buddhist ethic held at VBRI in Ho Chi Minh City received numerous participants from abroad, especially a German delegation headed by the Most Venerable Pasadika and Professor Dr. Bohm. In 1995, a symposium on Buddhist education in modern times held by Vice Rector Dr. Dick Dien Cao at the Duc Lam Buddhist Institute, Paris, France, welcomed the participation of many foreign scholars and professors, and in particular the Vietnam Buddhist delegation headed by the Most Venerable Rector Dick Minh Chau. In the same year, another one on Buddhist education was held at the VBRI in Ho Chi Minh City. In May 1996, at the Mahachulalongkorn Buddhist University under royal patronage, the Most Venerable Dr. Dick Minh Chau was awarded the honorary doctorate degree in Buddhist Studies by the Council of the Mahachulalongkorn University and Thai Buddhist Sangha President for his profound knowledge of the Buddha Dhamma, his leading role in Vietnamese monastic education, his active contribution to world peace protection through the ABCP organization, his tireless effort toward the universal unity of all Buddhist sects, and above all, his brilliant achievement in translating the 5 Nikayas from the original Pali into Vietnamese, and his total devotion to the cause of Dhamma propagation at home and abroad. On this occasion, the Vietnamese delegation furthered the close relationship and cooperation between the 2 Buddhist Sanghas in the field of monastic education, Buddhist research, and Dhamma propagation in the near future. Conclusion. Throughout 20 centuries in the long history of our people, Vietnamese Buddhism has been closely linked with the survival of the nation, whether in its rise and fall. Since the early days of introduction, the mind of Vietnamese Buddhism has been so well imbued with the Buddha's teachings about love, tolerance, and sympathetic understanding that Vietnamese Buddhism has been able to coexist in peace with other religions for over 2,000 years. On the one hand, generations of Vietnamese monks and nuns and lay followers, unknown or well-known, have somehow participated in making it a unique Vietnamese religion colored with Vietnamese ways and customs. On the other hand, Vietnamese Buddhism has had a great influence on Vietnamese literature, art, music, architectural, and Buddhism, so to speak, has become an integral part of Vietnamese life.